Hello everyone, and welcome to my B&B Fan Club channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The chaos that had occurred on the coastline would haunt everyone who observed it, but especially those who cared about Luna. The moment she vanished beneath the surface of the dark, churning water was burnt into memory, particularly the final 6 desperate words she whispered in desperation. Nobody anticipated the day to devolve into tragedy. It began gently, with the unsettling stillness that sometimes precedes a storm, both in the weather and in human emotion. Luna had been restless since morning, despite her best efforts to hide it. Her mind was racing with worries she couldn't completely express. Her relationships, feeling of belonging, and complicated loyalties all seemed to weigh heavily on her at the same time. She had always been the sort to carry unspoken burdens until they were impossible to hide. She strolled along the rocky shore in quest of clarity, perhaps even calm, unconscious that circumstances were conspiring to push her beyond her boundaries. The waves had gotten stronger throughout the afternoon. Still, Luna had always found refuge in the waves, and she didn't perceive any danger at first. As she approached the water's edge, a cool wind tossed her hair over her face. She was thinking, reflecting, and unconsciously drifting towards a moment that would affect the lives of everyone around her. The first hint that anything had gone dreadfully wrong was a slip, a rapid, unexpected shift beneath her feet. The rocks were slick, and the tide was higher than she had imagined. In a second, her equilibrium evaporated. She fell hard, automatically grasping for something, anything to support herself. But the sea had already seized the opportunity. Before she could regain her feet, a powerful wave smashed over her. The frigid shock took her breath away, and she felt the undertow pull at her legs like unseen hands, drawing her deeper into the sea. Panic raced through her. She attempted to scramble back to the shore, but her limbs felt heavy, and every movement was hampered by swirling currents. The more she fought, the more the water appeared to gain control. Bystanders quickly became aware of her discomfort. Someone shouted her name, but it was drowned away by the thunder of the water. Luna finally spoke, 6 syllables choked out with all of her remaining might. They were definitely a plea, a last call for assistance before the tide took her completely. Those simple words held the weight of every fear she kept concealed, every bond she'd come to rely on, and every future she envisioned but couldn't quite fathom. When she disappeared beneath the waves, the shoreline exploded in commotion. People ran for help, desperate to get to her in time. Calls were placed, rescue teams were dispatched, and for lengthy periods that seemed to last forever, the only certainty was the frightening absence of her presence. The water where she vanished swirled violently, as if destroying all evidence of her fight. Those nearest to her shivered with shock and horror when she returned to shore. Fear, guilt, helplessness, and incredulity were all felt strongly. Some condemned themselves for not standing by her side. Others replayed the incident in their minds, hearing those 6 words over and over, and wondering what they could have done better. It didn't matter how strong or composed they usually were. Luna's disappearance shattered their sense of security. People began to assemble in small groups as rescue workers searched the waters. The tension in the air was thick, almost suffocating. As is common during crises, time felt stretched and warped. Every passing minute without news exacerbated the mounting anxiety. The regular crash of waves felt cruel now, a mocking reminder of the force that had captured her. Some walked the shore in frenetic circles. Others sat motionless, staring out over the lake, as if sheer determination would bring her back. Her name was said repeatedly, softly in hope, forcefully in terror, and frantically in anguish. Even those who didn't know her well felt the weight of the situation. Luna had a way of quietly and discreetly changing people's lives, leaving them feeling unexpectedly protective of her. As the search progressed, questions began to reverberate throughout conversations. Why had she been alone? Was she agitated before heading down to the water? Had anyone said anything? Was she attempting to escape something emotionally overwhelming? Her friends and relatives disputed the possibilities, with each theory influenced by their own experiences with her. The truth was probably a combination of everything, a storm within her that mirrored the storm gathering on the sea. The 6 words she said tormented everyone. Those who heard them repeated the statement several times, attempting to figure out if it had any deeper meaning. Were they just a literal call for help? Or did they disclose something more? A secret she couldn't communicate until her life was on the line? Later, when the rescue crew found her unconscious but still alive, relief poured over the group like a cracking flood. However, the reunion did not alleviate the agony of seeing her disappearance. Luna's homecoming provided safety, but it also raised questions that she could not easily address in her fragile position. In the hours that followed, she alternated between consciousness and fatigue. When she eventually got enough lucidity to speak, the room went silent. Everyone, family, friends, and medical personnel, stood by, hoping for an answer yet not wanting to overwhelm her. Luna spoke slowly with a frail voice. She expressed her panic, the unexpected slide, the struggle with the water, and the overpowering sensation of isolation she had even before the catastrophe. She recalled the moment when she realized she couldn't resist the current anymore. She remembered speaking those 6 words, though she couldn't explain why she chose them. The impact of her words caused everyone concerned to pause and consider. People read them differently, frequently projecting their own fears, guilt, or hopes onto them. Some thought the statements reflected a deeper inner battle. Others said they were just natural, a primitive cry from someone on the verge. Luna's recuperation progressed slowly but steadily over the next days. She found herself surrounded by talks she had not intended to hear. Those around her were questioning their own objectives, relationships, and beliefs about her resiliency. Her near-tragic experience served as a watershed moment, causing emotional reckonings among those closest to her. Surviving the ordeal prompted Luna to face issues she could no longer avoid. She understood how much she had pent up inside, how rarely she let herself rely on people, and how easily stillness might turn dangerous. People around her became more attentive, tolerant, and willing to listen after realizing how close they had come to losing her. Her trauma also exposed underlying tensions. Some others blamed each other, arguing about who should have looked out for her, or who may have contributed to her emotional pain. Old tensions returned, fueled by dread and shame. Throughout it all, Luna stayed at the heart of the storm, a reminder of fragility, resilience, and the critical need for understanding. Those who observed her slipping beneath the waves recall the scene vividly. Many described it as a frozen moment in time. Her outstretched hand, horrified visage, and the rush of water engulfing her words. Even those who weren't present felt the effect when they heard the story. Luna's experience created a poignant story of survival and vulnerability. As her strength returned, she insisted on returning to the coast. Some complained, fearing the emotional toll, but she remained steadfast. Standing before the water that had almost claimed her, she felt a confusing mix of gratitude and terror. The waves were tranquil that day, gently against the sand, as if offering a silent apology. She took a deep breath and allowed herself to focus on the exact spot where she had landed. The memory made her chest tighten, but she remained planted, determined not to let fear overwhelm her. She spoke gently, not to anyone in particular, but to the moment itself, a quiet acknowledgement of everything she had been through and intended to rebuild. Those 6 things she said before diving into the sea would be part of her story forever. However, they no longer reflected just dread. They now signified her survival, enlightenment, and readiness to share the burden she had bore alone. Luna's experience sent ripples through the lives of everyone who knew her, compelling them to reconsider their roles in her society and their duties to each other. Her journey would not be easy. Trauma has a tendency to linger, resurface unexpectedly, and shape emotions in surprising ways. However, Luna was no longer navigating her inner storms in silence. She had witnessed personally how rapidly life can change, and how delicate everything can become. She had also witnessed how strong a relationship might be in drawing someone back from the brink. Her relationships gradually grown stronger. People communicated more honestly. Conflicts were addressed rather than ignored. Tension became an opportunity for healing. Luna's previously hidden fragility became a source of strength, not just for her, but for everyone around her. The water, unpredictable and enormous, continued to represent both danger and rejuvenation. And Luna, after confronting its darkest depths, arose with fresh clarity. She realized how vital it was to call out before the water rose too high, before stillness grew suffocating, and dread drowned out the words that needed to be said. Her 6 words would be remembered as the turning point in her story, not as the end. The phone arrived at 3:17 a.m., an hour when Los Angeles pretends to sleep but never does. Steffi Forrester's phone shook against the marble nightstand, like a furious hornet. She didn't have to glance at the screen to recognize who it was. Only one individual called her at this hour. Steffi. Hope's voice shook as the line connected, thin and shaking like it did when they were kids, and she had nightmares about losing her father again. It is Luna. She's gone. She went into the water. Steffi sat up so quickly that the silk sheets knotted around her waist. Slow down. Where are you now? Point du May. A cove beneath the cliff home. RJ saw her walk directly into the surf. He tried. He ran after her, but the undertow. Hope's breath caught. She spoke 6 words, Steffi. Only 6. Then she was gone. Steffi was already slipping jeans over her sleep shorts, phone placed between her ear and shoulder. What 6 words, Hope? There was such a long silence that Steffi assumed the call had been dropped. Then, barely audible, tell them the baby wasn't mine. The phone went dead. By the time Steffi got to the beach, the sky had turned the hue of a mending bruise. Red and blue lights strobed across the wet sand, painting the faces of those she loved with nightmarish colors. RJ stood ankle-deep in the receding water, arms curled about himself as if he could keep his ribs together. Liam hovered around, ineffective and pallid. Finn was on his knees behind a lifeguard, administering CPR on a little motionless body draped in a silver rescue blanket. Steffi's heartbeat stopped. For a brief while she assumed it was Luna. It was not. The body on the sand belonged to a teenage surfer who had attempted to assist. Luna was simply gone. Finn looked up when Steffi approached them. His eyes were bloodshot, and his scrubs were drenched to the knees. We searched for 43 minutes, he replied, his voice rough. The current here moves south at 6 knots. If she went under. He did not continue. He did not have to. Hope arrived next, barefoot and shaking, with Bill Spencer's arm clamped around her shoulders, as if he could physically keep her from breaking. Papi Nozawa was already there, screaming Luna's name into the wind until her voice failed and she collapsed to the ground like a puppet with its strings severed. Steffi recognized the 6 words were already circulating amid the turmoil. Someone had overheard Hope repeating them over the phone. Someone had overheard RJ telling the police. By sunrise, everyone in Malibu would know. Tell them the baby was not mine. The baby? Luna had insisted it was Finn's. The one that had ripped apart marriages, reputations, and entire family trees. The paternity test had returned inconclusive twice. The pregnancy that resulted in a miscarriage could not be discussed because Luna had fled into a private clinic the same week. Except now Luna was telling them, 6 final words yelled over the fury of the Pacific, that the whole thing was a fabrication. Steffi discovered RJ sitting on the bonnet of his Jeep, staring at the water as if it could return his cousin if he stared hard enough. Salt matted his lashes. She texted me, he muttered as Steffi sat next him. Last night. She said she couldn't do it anymore. She apologized for what she had put everyone through. I assumed she was referring to the regular gossip and hate campaigns on the internet. I told her to come over and we would figure it out in the morning. She said no. That there would be no morning for her. With trembling fingers he took out his phone and opened the message thread. The final text from Luna was time-stamped at 2:49 a.m. I am releasing you all free. The baby never existed. I'm so sorry. Steffi focused on the screen until the words blurred. Not real. Every fight. Every charge. Every night, Finn slept on the couch because Steffi couldn't look at him without noticing Luna's hand on his arm at the bikini bar. Every cry Hope had shed, fearing her marriage to Thomas was finished due to Luna's condition. Every vile newspaper. Every broken friendship. All of it was based on a massive untruth that had eaten a girl whole. Why? RJ's voice cracked. Why is she doing this? Steffi had theories. Too many. Luna's mother is currently in jail awaiting trial for 2 murders. Non-stop harassing. Death threats. The internet had dubbed her the new Sheila Carter before she was even 21. Perhaps the fake pregnancy began as a desperate attempt to gain attention, power, and a place in a family that had never truly claimed her. Perhaps it spiraled until there was just one way out. The ocean. Or perhaps Luna was never the villain everyone assumed she was. Maybe she was a fearful youngster drowning long before she got into the water. The hunt lasted 3 more days. Helicopters, dive teams, cadaver dogs walked the Titterline at daybreak. The Coast Guard discovered one of Luna's silver sandals in kelp 3 miles south. That was all. On the 4th morning, Steffi stood in the Cliff House living room, watching the news play the same shaky cell phone film on repeat. Luna in a white dress, hair whipping around her face, walking backward into the waves, arms wide as if greeting an old friend. You could just see her mouth moving. Tell them the baby was not mine. The host termed it a tragic confession. Twitter renamed it the 6-word suicide note. Hashtag spread like wildfire. Hashtag Lunalize, hashtag Forrester fakeout, hashtag Ocean Absolution. Steffi switched off the television and went to locate Finn. He was in the nursery, which had never been built due to everything that had happened. He sat on the floor, surrounded by unopened boxes of crib linens and staring at a little onesie still wrapped in cellophane. Steffi purchased it a week before the first paternity test, when she still believed in happy endings. I keep thinking, Finn remarked without looking up, if I had just responded to her SMS that night, the one where she asked if we could speak. It's just the 2 of us. I ignored it because I was upset, because I suspected she was attempting to manipulate me again. Steffi dropped herself beside him. You could not have saved her, Finn. No one could. I could have listened. His voice broke. She was screaming for help in the only way she knew how, and we all just covered our ears. They sat in quiet until the sun climbed high enough to spill across the wooden floor. Finn eventually spoke again, so gently that Steffi nearly missed it. I adored her, you know. Not like that, not the way everyone expected. But she was once my friend, before everything became twisted. I should have remembered, Steffi said, resting her head on his shoulder. For the first time in months, she didn't flinch as he wrapped an arm around her. Hope discovered the letter in another part of town. It had been slid beneath the cottage door sometime during the night, with Luna's calligraphy visible even through tears and seawater stains. Hope read it alone on the porch steps, knees brought up to her chest like a child. Hope, you were the only one who was ever good to me without expecting anything back. I'm sorry I took advantage of you the most. The pregnancy was a hoax from the start. There was never any baby. I falsified the tests, the ultrasound photographs, and everything. I figured if I could make people care, even if it was hate, they'd notice me. I realize what I did was unforgivable. I know I ruined people's lives. But please know that the last thing I want is to continue destroying them after I'm gone. Tell your mother that I'm sorry for all I put her through in jail. Tell RJ I adored him like the brother I never had. Tell Steffi the truth so she can have her husband back without question. Express gratitude to Finn for his kindness, even if it was undeserved. And tell Thomas if he ever returns home, that I have released him. He never owed me anything. I orchestrated everything, including the kisses and almosts. He was attempting to be kind. That is all. I used to dream of becoming a Forrester. Real family and real love. Turns out, I had no idea what each of those words meant until it was too late. The ocean is calling. Sounds like forgiveness. Do not look for me. By the time you read this, I'll be a part of something greater than all the falsehoods. I apologize. Luna Hope read it 3 times before folding it into her pocket and going to locate her mother. Brooke was in the main house kitchen, staring at a cup of cold coffee. Brooke did not ask any questions after Hope placed the letter on the table between them. She merely opened it with trembling hands and began to cry quiet, sad sobs that sounded like the final fragments of a heart giving up. In the end, Bill Spencer prepared a memorial. There was no funeral, only a gathering on the same beach where Luna went missing. Half of Los Angeles showed up, some out of remorse, some out of morbid curiosity, and some just because the cameras were rolling. Steffi wore black. Finn stood by Kelly holding her hand. Liam hovered beside Hope like a ghost who hadn't known he'd died. RJ did not come at all. Poppy arrived late, accompanied by 2 jail guards in plain clothing. Her ankle monitor flashed red beneath the hem of her dress. She strolled directly to the water's edge, scattering white plumeria petals across the waves. Nobody tried to stop her. When the preacher asked whether anyone wanted to speak, no one responded. Seconds turned into minutes. Then, to everyone's surprise, Thomas Forrester came forward. He'd flown in from Paris that morning. He hadn't been notified he was coming. He just saw the news and boarded an aircraft. He appeared thinner and older, the European polish worn off by sadness and 14 hours in economy. "I have 6 words too," he continued. His voice carried over the roar of the ocean. "Luna Nozawa deserved better than us." He said nothing else. He did not need to. That night, Steffi and Finn made love for the first time since everything had fallen apart. Slow and delicate, as if people were relearning each other's bodies. After that, they lay tangled in blankets smelling of salt and second chances. "Do you think she is at peace?" Finn whispered in Steffi's hair. Steffi imagined the girl stepping backward into the sea, arms extended, face tilted toward a sky just starting to lighten. "I think," she continued, "she finally stopped drowning." Beyond the break, the ocean maintained its own counsel. It had taken Luna's body, secrets, and a 6-word confession. It returned nothing but the steady, old cadence that stated that some stories end exactly where they began, at the edge of the water, waiting for the tide to determine what forgiveness looks like. A silver sandal slipped south beneath the waves, carried by a current that was older than lies, love, and all of them together. The Pacific rolled on, huge and unbiased, whispering the only 6 words that ever truly mattered. "You are small. You have been spotted. Let go."